All right, we're back here working on my neighbor's Kawasaki mule, the 4010, replacing the wheel bearings, the CV axles, and we'll do some other stuff later. That'll be a separate video. I already got this one apart, and so now I'm going to walk you through just the way I did it on this side. And they're basically identical, looks like, from side to side. So. First things first, take the wheel off, of course. And that is a 17 millimeter. Cover comes off there. Fasten that. This is probably metric, but I don't have a metric size that's correct, so I'm just going to use 1 1/8 inches. That's it on the ground. Shouldn't be cooler on this, but it'd be kind of nice to have one. This one's pretty tight. Next thing is, I want to take this ball joint apart here. This is a 11/16. Again, it's probably metric. 11/16. That's probably 17 millimeters, actually. And then the ball joint separator would be the better tool here. But I have one. The other side came right apart. That's how I expected the other one to drop down. Something's hanging in that's on the other one now. Okay, so now you can just turn the wheel all the way this way, and there should be enough room that you can kind of flex this out of here. It's kind of a trick. Okay. I'm going to have to do this on the other one too. Buy myself a little bit more room though. I'm going to go ahead and disconnect the steering linkage here. Just like that. Now there is also a seal in here and one on this side as well. We'll be replacing both of those. Take that out. Shim or something in there. That's that old seal. Looking kind of rough. That one out. Something on this side. And I'll knock those bearings out in just a minute. The next thing, there's three Allen head like cap screws in here, and they're kind of a pain to get to. Loosen them up, and then this whole CV axle will come right out. Okay. Now we should just pour it in there. The other side didn't have one of these. That's interesting. Alright. So now, with this thing, there's a O-ring on here. Make sure you don't tear that up, it goes back in there. This spacer, snapper in here, another spacer behind it, and this will come out. Transfer that right to your new shaft. This snapper is kind of weird, it's kind of a pain. The way it's set up in there, because it's kind of inside of that spacer. Now it has this spacer on it here. All right. And then there's a seal on this side that we didn't get, and in fact, this one appears to be leaking. So before we can put this back together, it looks like we're going to need to get these seals. We already put this one back together and then decided we probably needed that seal. That one was not leaking, but this one is, so if we're waiting on this one anyway, we'll go ahead and get both of those. So when I get these, we'll update the video and we'll replace those seals. So. Okay, so on these wheel bearings, the only good way I know to get them out is just to beat them up. There's a spacer in the middle. If you kind of tap down on that spacer, you can expose the brace and the backside bearing lip. The other side became fairly easy. That. Old bearing. Oh wow. That doesn't feel terrible, but we're this far into it, so the bearing kit's going to be cheap. This one side is very difficult to get out. This one. That's out. There you go. There's wheel bearings, wheel bearing seals, and CV shaft. So, like I say, we get some other seals ordered, then we put all this back together. All right, we got these new seals in for these, and this is the little plate that goes on your CV axles. Already got that one out and cleaned up. So this is the new seal. See, it matches. That is going to be part number 92049-1309 on this model. This is a 2012 model. Is that right? 2012 410 mule trans 4x4. There is a different seal that you can order on accident that is too big, and that's this one here. I don't have this part number, but it's the first numbers are the same, but it's a different one, and it's bigger. It does not fit. So to get that out, just a screwdriver under there, turn it in a couple places, just like that, it pops out. So we'll just clean this up and put the new one in. Clean this one off camera for the new one. I go this way, so open side down. Get started in there. Oh, it's just gonna press right in. By hand, just like that. So we'll get the other one cleaned up and we'll put that one in as well. So new seals installed. This is the new CV axle. So press this on there. Should be just kind of snug, but not tight. Next is this thing. It's got a recess in it. That's gonna go towards the outside. Next is this weird little snap ring thing. Doesn't matter which way it goes. And these are kind of a trick to get on. Try to show it on camera here, but they're recessed inside of this little spacer piece. So you kind of have to get one side started and then work it around. Almost there. Bit of a trick. Get in there. Oh, it's so close. There, just like that. And then don't forget, I don't think I showed this coming off because it didn't come off. It stayed in the machine, but there is a washer that goes on here like that. Before you put that back in the machine, make sure that washer's there. Then don't forget you got an O-ring that goes in there as well. So let's go ahead and move back over to the machine and we'll stab this back in there. So this O-ring fits in a groove up inside of here. So I'm gonna go ahead and install it in there. And if it doesn't want to stay in there, a little bit of like petroleum jelly or something won't hurt. Not a lot, just enough to kind of give it some stiction to get in there. So again, don't forget that washer. Now we're just gonna feed this through. On this side, I disconnected the brakes. You don't have to do that. I thought I did at the time. And that is a spline fitting that will fit in just like so. Turn that, and that takes these three little Allen bolts, screws technically. So we'll put them back in. You have to kind of manipulate your A-arm here, get it out of your way. We'll get all three of them started and then we'll tighten them down. This particular A-arm is a little bit tight, which means these bushings may need replaced at some point, but not today. Nice, one started. And the second one. Last one, this one's particularly tight. Can't reach all the way in there with the Allen wrench. I gotta do it by hand. There we go. All right, so that's all three of them started. I'll torque these down. For the record, on a standard size Allen wrench, when you have this in there, if you're pushing on it from this end, when the wrench starts to kind of flex, but just barely, when it gets tight enough that pushing on it here causes this to barely start to bend, that is the proper torque spec for an Allen bolt on this standard sized wrench. So when you go to torque these down, just pull on them until this barely flexes, and that will tighten it enough to put the correct preload on the thread. Fun fact. So let me get these tightened down, and then I'll get back to you. We'll put it back in the hub here. So what I mean by that is you can see right here where it starts to flex the tool and it's not actually turning the head. That's the correct spec. So if I come over here to this one, which is going to be harder for you guys to see and harder for me to get on. So that one was still turning. You probably can't see that, but I can. And it's flexing the wrench, but it's not actually turning the bolt. That's the correct torque spec unless it's otherwise called out. Alrighty guys, so we're also replacing the wheel bearings on here and seals. So bearings and seals. Now I bought these as a kit from ATV Works. The bearing number here is a 6005 RS. Yeah, and the seal is going to be a TC 3547. That 35 and the 47, those are going to be metric dimensions of the inside and outside diameters of the seal. The TC, I'm not sure of. Anyway, though, I'll put that in a second. So for these bearings, it's just like any other bearing. I want to drive them in straight. I don't have a socket that fits this perfectly, but you know, they make these in all kinds of different sizes. So I'll use this one to get it started, this one to get it in, and I'll have to kind of shuffle it around as I tap this into place. So I'm going to turn this over backwards. They're not super hard to get in. You want to alternate sides. So I'm not tapping it super hard. I'm not just beating the hell out of it. It doesn't take that much. They should go in pretty freely. And I have to switch to a smaller one here. Careful, because these are sealed bearings. We'll be careful not to damage the seals. And general rule, you want to drive a bearing by its outside race. It would be better to have a press, for the record. I just don't have anything that would work in this particular configuration. Once you get it started, a little bit easier because you can kind of rest the socket on there. If I had the right size socket that fit in there correctly, this would be a lot easier. I just don't. All right, you hear the difference? It's right at the bottom. Next thing is the seal. This one goes, so the open side of the U seal is going to go in on these. So like this. And you can usually kind of start them kind of halfway by hand. Don't want to get it crooked in there though. There we go. So now just a block of wood. actually. With the brakes assembled on this one, it's a little bit trickier. But that looks as it should. Now, turn this around. I did put this just kind of back in. It's still loose, just to hold it in place while I put the bearings in. So do the exact same thing on this back side, run it in until you feel it bottom out, tap the seal in, and then we'll move on to putting the new CV axle in. So see you in a second. So for these CV shafts, you saw me take them apart, go back together the same way. But this time we have to stab it through the bearing. They are tight. Feels tighter. There we go. Stabs right through the bearing. Tap this back until this gets, this piece right here on that CV shaft is what actually engages that oil seal on the back side. So I'm going to tap it up here just lightly until it pulls in. So that part there is ready to go. That's the CV shaft installed. So now we need to get these ball joint here, and then I'll have to reconnect the steering as well because I disconnected that to give myself more room. So you can tap the bottom of this. Ball joints are tapers. Washer on that, don't forget it. So wrong washer. This one I kind of messed up, so we'll see if I can get this to go. We may have to delay once again and get a new castle nut. It's off tight. I put an impact on this, but I may need to fix this. It's a metric thread. I'm not quite sure what it is. We may have to fix that though. And that was from the way that I beat that off of there. Again, that's why you should use a ball joint splitter. It'll prevent damaging your castle nuts. I just don't have one, so I didn't use one. So let me get this back on later off camera. In the meanwhile, we can stab this steering joint. So this one's the same way, but I'm going to tap down on this side. You don't want a whole lot. You don't need a whole lot. And then also has a washer. This one I didn't mess up. So the trick for if you're going to hammer those off is to turn your castle nuts around and thread them on so that the fragile side is up, so that you're hitting on the solid side. And I was having trouble getting that one to thread on upside down, which is why I didn't do it, and I should have been more patient, I guess, because I tore it up. But got it over here with me. Right there. This one's a 9/16. Yeah, that's snugged up just fine. Once they get tight, they'll snug up just fine. And you just gotta find a hole that lines up with the castle nut, so that you can stick a cock key through there. This guy. It's probably kind of hard to see. And then bend that over. Need a small pair of pliers for this little one. There we go. I can choose my fingers. The little one's pretty small. All right, so that's the steering installed. This guy should just kind of thread on. Give that just a touch of grease. So inside of here, this right here, that is the seal surface that rides on the seal that we installed out here. So I'm gonna give that just a touch of grease around the outside here. You don't want to put any excess grease in this because it's your brake. So if it gets hot and it drips down and gets on your brake pads, that's not ideal. I'm gonna put just a touch on the spline as well. Anti-seize would be better really on the spline. All right, the difference between the old castle nut and the new one. This is the new one. It comes with a new cotter key as well. At least this set that we bought from ATV Works did. You can see the height difference there. And this doesn't really match anything. If you put it on just by itself, it's too short. You can see it's kind of, the cotter key would be outside of the castle nut. So I could put this on there with just the washer or something, but you have to have this washer because that is what this rubber dust cap actually seals onto. So you have to have that washer. And then the old style has this lock nut as well. So when you put that on there, that will cause everything to match up. But if you try to use this same stack up with the taller washer, then you can't get your cotter, or the taller castle nut that is, then you can't get the cotter key through the castle nut. So I'm just going to go back to the original castle nut, lock washer, and this flat washer on the back, which again, you have to have in order to put this dust cap on. And so I'm going back with that just because it fits, everything works. Since I have a new one, I will replace the cotter key. But all you need to do is just tighten this down until it's completely compressed, the split ring washer there, and then put the cotter key in, bend it over. So that takes 1 1/8 wrench. Again, it's probably metric. I don't have a set of metric wrenches, and this one fits close enough. Fold that around both sides. And just to make sure it stays out of the way, I always like to kind of pinch them together here. Just like that. And now you can see how that dust seal slips over that washer, just like that. All right, last thing to do is just put the tire on. You all know how to do that. And again, oh, it's hard to turn now because I reconnected the steering. I gotta fix this, so I will before this is all put back together. Not gonna put the tire on until I fix that because it'll be in my way. But I think that's everything I had to show you on replacing CV axles on a Kawasaki 4010 Mule. So this is a 2012 model once again. And yeah, thanks for watching. See you guys next time.